everyone, this is Direwolf20, and welcome to the Crafting Experiences Game Design in Minecraft panel here at Minecon Live 2019. We're hanging out backstage, a group of guys here on the panel, to talk about game design within Minecraft. So before we jump into that too much, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. So I am Direwolf20. I'm a YouTuber, Twitch streamer, and I've also worked on a mod recently called Building Gadgets.
You're also very shiny.
Thanks.
I'm Drogus, and you'll know me best for Chisel and Drive Force. I've been modding for 5-6 years, and all of these guys here are my inspiration.
Hi, I'm Amadorns. I am also a mod developer as well as a streamer. And if you know me, you've probably heard of Super Circuit Maker or Frames, though I try to also contribute to Forge.
Hi, I'm Brandon. You may know me as King B-Dogs. I've worked on a few mods, one called the Aether 2, and Orbis. I've been doing this for about 10 years now. I actually started in 2009, and I'm just really passionate about game design, and I want to share that with everyone and inspire them.
Hi, everyone, and I'm Vasky. I've been modding for about 8 years now. I got started by copying this guy's code, which was pretty nice. And from then on out, I've made mods like Botania, Psy, and if you're into the vanilla style, you might know me from the Quark mod. I'm here with you guys again.
Great. So the topic of this panel is game design, right? And that's what we're talking about here. How to use Minecraft to build a game or some kind of experience, whether it be a map or all kinds of different things, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about, is specifically game design. So what does game design mean to you guys?
Yeah, so game design can have many different definitions depending on who you talk to, but for the purpose of our panel, I would say that it's basically about structuring your ideas and structuring your experiences. So the experience that you want to deliver to your players, game design helps you structure that. And I mean, it's very easy to come up with many different ideas, but how can you bring that all together? And that's basically what game design is.
Right.
There's also like many different avenues of delivering your content, be mods, mini games, server plugins, maps. There's a lot of avenues.
Yeah, recently we got data packs too.
Right.
Yeah.
Data packs, Minecraft Marketplace stuff. There's literally tons of different ways that you can augment Minecraft and build your own experience in your own game within Minecraft, right? So that's what the topic of this panel is going to be all about, is how to get from start to finish. We're going to go through the individual steps that you need to do in order to bring your idea to life, right? So let's get started with step one, which I've kind of already hinted at. The first one is the most difficult step, which is coming up with the idea, right? And it's surprising. Everybody thinks like actually writing the code is hard or something else, but no, coming up with that idea is probably the trickiest part, right? So what are some of your tips or hints, or what are some things that gave you inspiration when you were coming up with the things you guys have made?
Well, usually a really good way to just get some simple ideas rolling is to just play the game. You get in there, you have some fun, and you try to look at it in a, what would I add to this lens? So maybe going to a world and see, oh man, I think this would be really cool to have here. Or you think, there's not a lot of content here, we could maybe add some more. There's multiple ways of looking at it. But generally, you want to try and find something you would like to have. And that's a really good launching off point, because you have a vision and an idea that you want to get started with. There's more ways to do it, but this is a very simple one for beginners.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can come from the community. Like you find like a niche idea that people have been asking for many years, and you can just try implementing it yourself.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to come from yourself and come from others.
Yeah, or it could just be literally anything you come up with at any point in time. Like maybe you've read a book and you think, oh, this magic system in this world, what if it was in Minecraft? Like it's an interesting way of looking into things, like maybe not from just the Minecraft point of view, but like extrapolating to other things in your life. Like
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, absolutely. But once you have that forced idea and you start, building upon it, right? You don't want to get too attached to any one piece of it, right? You want to just use that as a starting off point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've even gone through this while working on the Aether, where there was a kind of a point where we wanted to add like 10 different dungeon ideas. And unfortunately, something that you got to think about at all times is really scope. You can think of all these great ideas, but you also need to make sure that you can produce them and that your team can work on them. Maybe it just takes too long to develop, and you kind of need to think about what can we get done at this point in time. So yeah, don't get too attached to ideas, and just think about what you can actually produce with the resources you have.
Yeah, and sometimes ideas just don't pan out.
Yeah.
Like, you may be able to produce it, but as you're producing it, you start to implement it, you put it in the game, and you're like, oh man, this isn't really as good as I thought it would be. And in that situation, you can either discard it, it just does not work at all, and you just yeet it out of existence, or you can start to evolve it, you can iterate on it. And what we like to do is play the what if game. So you have this idea here, it's an object that it's not really physical, but you can visualize it. And you see, what if I took it in this direction or this direction? So we were joking about making a cool pickaxe mod.
Yeah.
It's not very good, but just bear with me, okay? So you have a cool pickaxe and you put it in the game and you're like, oh man, this sucks. You want to improve on it. So you start thinking, what if it did this? What if it did that? What if you could set it on fire and it would be able to make lights in dungeons? Or what if you could use it as fuel for a furnace? And these are kind of silly ideas, but when you're making something more serious, morphing it in various directions and seeing what works better is a very good way of trying to get your idea better. And if it just doesn't work well, just eat it out.
Right.
Yeah.
And you definitely don't want to be afraid to ditch ideas, right? You might go ahead and build something and say, hey, this isn't working.
Yeah, and once you have your ideas, like one of the most important things, and it sounds stupid, but you should totally write them down.
Right. And that's step 2, right?
Yeah, you should definitely make some sort of design document. It doesn't have to be something overly fancy, but at least get your ideas down, be it on paper, on your phone, on your computer, and try to see it from like above, see the thing as a whole, how each idea works with each other, how you can maybe modify things based on other things you've previously designed. And there are actually 2 main ways that you can do that sort of thing. And what used to be done most back in the day for games was to make one big design document, have everyone working on it for a long while, and once that was set, there was no changing it, and it was just made into a game. And that doesn't really work for us, and unless you're a professional developer, most of the time that's not going to be something that works for you.
Right.
So a more approachable way of doing it is coming up with a basic idea and then iterating on it, maybe getting feedback from the community, getting feedback from friends, that sort of stuff, and just keep iterating on the same idea until you have something that you like.
Right. So start small, get your design document built up, right?
Yeah.
When I was first making building gadgets, I had my idea. I wanted a mod that made building easier, right? So then I opened up a notepad, right? Simple text document, and wrote down my ideas. I want a gadget to help me build. I want an exchanging gadget. I want a copy paste gadget, right? And I just wrote down on that notepad what each of those different things would be able to do, right? So that's kind of like the most important second step, is really just figure out exactly, what you want initially. But this can't be written in stone, right? Like, we have to be able to adapt and change as things go by.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as Emma was saying, and I'm going to give this a little bit more context, you should always keep something on you to note things down. So be it a notebook, or I'm sure everyone's phone has an app to keep notes on it. Just write down really quick, like you're going for a walk and you're like, oh man, coal pickaxe, yes. You just write down coal pickaxe in your phone, you keep walking, and then you come up with something else. But you don't have to go into detail while you're doing something else, but just note it down. Your brain usually will fill in the gaps as long as you put in the basic title.
Yeah.
It's very important. Otherwise, you're going to be like me. You're going to wake up at 4 a.m., come up with a great idea, and forget it in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've absolutely said, "Ooh, this is a genius idea. No way I'll forget this."
And
And
forget
20
it.
minutes later, I'll say, "Now, what was it again?"
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I
when-
think everyone can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to documentation, something that's also important to note is that if you are just one person that is actually working on this project, like you're doing the programming, you're doing the textures, you're doing the design, you don't necessarily have to have a very formal design process or a documentation process. If it works for you that you just kind of iterate on these design ideas in like a very like iterative fashion, you don't necessarily have to document it. If it
No.
does help you, do it, absolutely.
Right.
But also do what works for you. I mean, there is no one solution to designing in games. Everyone has a different process, so work with what is good for you.
Everyone does this in different ways. What I usually like to do is just keep a list where I just tack things into there, just small titles.
Right.
And then I pull a few out every time I want to make an update and draft them a little bit better and then add them and rinse and repeat. This is my way to do it. Just you have to find the one that works for you. Try mine out though.
So one of the best grounds I find for ideas is to just really know the core game, because even the recent updates, there's like there's so much fertile grounds for like new ideas. Like there's like war logging, there's like the villagers. So with like the job sites and stuff, so I could like create new trades, stuff like that.
Right. So there's a million new things you can come up with just by playing the game.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Minecraft such a great foundation for this, right? A lot of what you need is already there, and you can just build upon it. So those of you out there who are looking to get into game design, to look into getting into programming or texture art or map making, whatever you want to get into, you have a great foundation in Minecraft because a bunch of stuff's already done for you, and you get to just build upon it.
And it's a lot easier than starting with a whole new game from
Absolutely.
scratch.
Yeah.
It's massive.
Right.
It's really hard to state just how much of a difference it is to make something from scratch and to just add it to Minecraft, because you can just come up with a block idea, not know anything about programming, modding, or whatever, look up a tutorial, all that, and within like a few hours you got your mod up and running. Of course, it's
Right.
very simple, very basic, but you can, in just a quick afternoon, look up a tutorial and have something you can send to your friends for them to play.
Definitely.
And say like, I made this. Like this is something that you have made from scratch, and that I think is a feeling that a lot of us like really appreciate.
Yeah.
So step one, right, is come up with the idea. Step two is write it down. Step three would be let's get to work, right?
Yeah.
Let's start doing it. If it's a map, start building it. Open up Minecraft, start your world, and start making it. If it's a texture, right? If you're doing like a texture pack or something like that, start working on the art. And if it's a mod, start programming.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it should be something simple you start off with. Like, people tend to know my mods for being really extensive and having a lot of content.
Right.
My first mod added one block. It was a lamp. It had the top and bottom texture of wooden planks. The side texture was a plank with a cutout of a glowstone block I stole from a texture pack, and then the torch texture on top. Now, don't be like me, don't steal textures from texture packs. This was 2011.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can start off with something really simple and work your way up from there. Like,
Right.
if I can make a stupid lamp and in 2019 be here talking to you guys about making stupid lamps, like, you can make your own stupid lamp and just carry on from there.
And I think an important point that you just made was breaking down your project into individual pieces that you can do, right? Like when I was making building gadgets, I didn't start thinking about making all the different components of it. I said, I'm going to make the first item.
Yep.
And I'm just going to get the item in the game. It's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to make it when I right click, something happens. Then I'm going to make something else happen, right? Take those and break them individual steps and build up from there.
That's the crux of development, really. Just
Yeah.
taking a very big problem and and just snapping it down to things, to bite-sized pieces you can understand.
Yeah.
Well,
And-
what I might want to say, while like you're trying to implement all of these ideas, is like if you're like when you're working off of like a game design document, that you don't have to be like overly rigid or too flexible with it, because then your content just doesn't flourish when you're like too rigid, and when you're too flexible, then you kind of come up with all these ideas along the way, too many ideas, and
Right.
you just kind of stress out about all the
Yeah,
stuff
or you
want
might
to add.
feel lost.
Right.
Yeah.
It's super important to be a little bit flexible. Because it's funny, you'll think there's something that looks good on paper,
Yeah.
and then you'll put it in the game, and you realize, wait, this doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Nope.
Like building gadgets has 20 different modes on a gadget, but the original idea was to have 20 different items, one for each mode. And then I realized very quickly that would be a hassle, right?
Oh, yeah.
And a
So
lot of-
I said, no, this doesn't work. I have to change it and come up with a different solution. So like I said, your design document can't be written in stone,
Yeah,
right?
and a lot of the times, you're talking about reduction.
Right.
A lot of the times you'll come up with addiction. Not addiction, addition.
Yeah. You have an addiction to addition.
You can get addicted to modding. That happens a lot. But
Yeah.
Yeah. it
Um,
does.
you make a thing and you start playing with it, and you're like, man, this looks cool, but it would be even better if we had that over there.
Right.
And you just start naturally evolving it. And as Drogas over there said, that's the point where you cannot be too flexible, because otherwise your document just starts to explode all over the place, and there's nothing keeping you rooted to what you want to do originally. But it's important to be a bit flexible, a bit rigid, and you'll come up with something good if you try to find a middle ground in
Like
Yeah.
most things in life, moderation, right?
moderation.
Yeah.
And
Moderation to modding.
And I think that's a good segue into our common pitfalls, right? Because that's the next
Yeah.
topic we wanted to discuss. What are some of the common pitfalls we've run into when doing this design and development work, right? Because I think there's a few things that we all found we've all bumped into. So maybe, we can give some advice to the people out there to avoid.
Yeah, so one that I've kind of found is something that I like to call like muddying the waters, where essentially you kind of just add too many things to one experience. So one thing that I found with game design is that it's very easy to just, try to add 100 things and do them averagely, right?
Right.
But what is really great game design is doing one thing very well. And this kind of helps you in every aspect of the design, because not only do your players now understand exactly what the experience is, it comes with better quality as well. Like, you're able to do that one thing very well. You're not doing 100 things
Right.
like poorly.
Like Aether is a self-contained dimension, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm going to that dimension, I'm going to find things in it, and that's that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And Super Circuit Maker, it's all about redstone, right?
It's all about redstone. And
You didn't add cows and new kinds of
No.
animals, and you
No.
didn't add a dimension, right? You added
Yeah.
redstone, and that's it.
Yeah, and in a lot of cases, you will get player feedback or just feedback from other developers that is really, really good, but it might just not be fit for your project. So I've had people recommend to me adding different kinds of dispensers and stuff like that that is somewhat related to redstone, but is not really the aim of the mod.
So you're telling me that I can't ask you to add clay pickaxes.
I mean,
You can ask. I don't
can
think
ask
they'll do
me,
it.
and I could do it, but you will have to make the textures.
Here's the thing, Joker.
That's a
Here's the
deal.
thing. You know my list where I put down the coal pickaxe? We'll put the clay pickaxe next to it, okay? It'll just
That's
be
good.
there for a few years.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair
Okay.
enough.
So as Emma was saying, you have to know your audience, know who you're making the mod for, know what the mod is supposed to be. And when you're taking in feedback, I mean, it's very easy to diss someone who says, "Oh man, your mod sucks. It's terrible." Like you just look at that guy and you're like, "Man, you're stupid." And you don't do that. But if someone comes to you and says, "Okay, so here's a really cool idea. I'd like you to add this, this, and that," you have to look at it at face value and think, "Yeah, but that's not what my mod, my map, my data pack is."
Right.
You need to know
Feedback is
what
the
it
hardest thing to accept, right? Because you built this thing, it's your baby, you love it, and it's really hard to have people come to you with critiques
Yeah.
about it. And you have to recognize that's one of the hardest skills to have, the difference between good and bad feedback, right? Criticism and constructive criticism. And then deciding, you know what, that's a great idea. It just doesn't fit this mod or this map. Versus, that's a good idea, I am going to add that. I like that idea,
Yeah.
right?
And in the case that is not meant for your mod or your map or your experience in general, feel free to link them to this panel. Tell them to learn game design.
Right.
They can
Add it
make it
themselves, right?
themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or just there's a lot of members in the community out there you can reach out to, and I'm sure someone will be interested and try and join whatever group you're trying to do here.
Yep.
Right.
If you do that, though, just be aware that you need to bring something to the table as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So even just a very detailed, well put together document with ideas and concepts, that's a valuable asset.
Yeah.
for sure.
And most of us are doing this for fun.
Mhm.
So if you're working with community people, do not expect full commitment. Like
Sure.
Yeah.
there's,
Oh, not me,
there's
no,
not
not
going to
me.
be
Not-
someone working there 8 hours a day.
Not me, Emma. Not me. I'm not doing this for fun. I don't care about fun. I just want to extort spotlights out of Dire.
That's
That
fair
is
enough.
true.
That's fair enough. And another pitfall I think is making sure players have a choice when you
Yeah.
give them something,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's easy to make a linear path, right? But Minecraft at its core is a sandbox game, so you
Yeah.
want to make sure that the player still can kind of do whatever they want and find their own path in the world.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to guide them down a specific path, like you need to get stone before you can get iron, before you can get diamond, but you can still choose what to do, right?
Yeah,
When you
Minecraft
give-
is a game that you are meant to be able to play 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways. So making one single linear path just makes it not replayable, and,
Mhm.
and that's a lot of the fun of it, playing again and figuring out how to do things differently.
Yeah, and
Right.
when you give players choices, you have to make sure the choices are actually meaningful. Like, here's a really, really basic example. You go to a dungeon and there's a chest, and a sign says, "Take one. You can only take one." Let's say they rigged some weird stuff up to make that work. And there's a sword that deals 10 damage and a sword that deals 5 damage. I'm sure anyone will take the sword that deals 10 damage
I would.
because you will take a sword that deals 20 damage, though. It just
I
goes
would.
with
I
your
would still.
name.
I would.
Yeah.
But players are functioning human beings who are just as, if not more intelligent than you. You have to respect them and you have to design content for people that makes sense. So an example here would be you could give a sword that deals 10 damage, sure, but you could also give a sword that deals 5 damage and is way faster.
Right.
So then you have two different playstyles juggling there, and players can make a choice that is significant.
Right.
And when you're making content, it's very important to try and figure out, let's give them decisions that actually matter, you know?
Yeah.
So
And
give
when-
them choices, give them options, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you find that your community, for some reason, that they're kind of giving you feedback that they don't have as many choices that they feel like they should have, it's really important that you integrate that feedback into your design
Mhm. Oh,
process.
yes.
Like if you're just releasing an update, let's say every 1 week, use that to your advantage. Take the feedback and then make that go back into your design loop so that you're actually addressing the problems, like player choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best source of feedback is yourself. Like you're playing this game and you've also got all this content on top of it. But yes, you're having fun, but you just feel like there's the essence of something that's just missing.
Right.
And so you can kind of incorporate your own feedback into like whether you're creating and it makes it yours and
Right. No,
Makes
it's a
it fun.
perfect good point, right? Because
Yeah.
when I made building gadgets, I knew I wasn't a good builder. So I made a mod that made it so people could share their builds with me and I could use them, right?
Yeah.
So that was my inspiration, was what I wanted out of the game. I said, you know what? I need something that makes building easier because I'm not good at it.
It makes the
And
design
it-
process super rewarding, honestly. Like
Yeah.
you're not just designing for someone else, you're designing for yourself.
Right.
Brandon, stop stealing my lines. It's not my line. I'm just joking with you. But one thing I want to say here is that it doesn't have to be a niche. It doesn't have to be something that doesn't exist. It can be something that exists already, and you want to do a little bit of a different spin on.
Sure.
And it can be
Half
something,
of building gadgets already existed, right?
Yeah, or it can be something from another game. This is also a very good tip. Play a lot of different games
Yeah.
and look at them with a critical lens of how does this tick? How does this work? Where's the fun in here?
Yeah.
Like, for example, one of my mods, it's called Neat, which is a mod by me, by the way, just in case you weren't aware of that.
Yes.
That's based on a add-on for World of Warcraft called Tidy Plates. And I really like that add-on, and I'm like, all right, cool, I want this in Minecraft, let's take it and put it in Minecraft.
Right.
Yeah.
You can do that for sure.
Yeah.
So that leads into like, who the mod is for, right? Usually you
Yeah.
start off with something it's for me, and then you realize that this also applies to other players who are like me. Because there are so many different types of players in Minecraft, right? You've got your technical players, you've got your redstone players, you've got your builders. There's a million different ways to play Minecraft, right? PvP, PvE, all that stuff.
Yeah, and you cannot try to target everyone.
Right.
Like, not everyone is going to enjoy absolutely every mod. So try to figure out who the people you're making this mod for are,
Mhm.
and play to their strengths. See if they can give you more feedback. See if there's anything new in Minecraft itself that might tie into that thing, and try to iterate on that.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, starting with an idea, going into a design, and then implementation, right? An important part of doing the implementation of a mod or a map or a texture pack, whatever you're doing, is knowing skills, right? A lot of the times when you start, especially if you're a smaller, just yourself, you need to understand your own limitations, right? I wasn't a great programmer, but I wanted to learn more programming, so I use this as an excuse to push myself and get a little bit better at it. But I knew I was terrible at art, and there was no way I was going to make some good art, right? So I reached out to a friend of mine, Rorax, who did the art for me, right? So you need to find somebody who can do textures to help you out. So knowing your own skill set is really important, right? But not everybody does things on their own, right? So like Brandon, for example, right? You've got
Yeah, so like it's super important to understand like communication skills so you can work together with a team. You know, so much of the actual process of designing an experience is a collaborative effort.
Right.
And you also need to remember as a designer that while it is very easy to kind of like think of the high level overhead of this design and kind of feel like you know it's your experience that you're designing, you need to kind of rope your team into this, and you need to give them, you know, the agency where they feel like they're a part of this design process as well. So like while they don't, you know, they don't have to actually touch every aspect of the design, you should at least allow them to give some feedback and, you know, make some tweaks here and there, because at the end of the day, modding and map making it's a collaborative, free process that we all do for fun. You
Sure.
know, these are hobby projects.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that people are having fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if you need to delegate tasks to somebody, obviously, you know, if you're going to have somebody help you make art and textures and something, right? You know, reach out, see who can help you out. There's
Yeah,
a lot of
play-
people in
play
the
to
community.
people's strengths.
Yeah, there's a
Absolutely.
lot of people in the community, and know their strengths and be able to communicate with them for what you're looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
So we're getting towards the end of our panel here. So I think it's important for each of us to go down the line and just give a final tip, right? We talked a lot about a bunch of different topics. So what's one final tip or takeaway that you've got that would be helpful to know for somebody who wants to get started? And for me, I'll start off with just say, find something you're passionate about, find something you want to do, right? Like, I wanted to make a mod that made building easier. That's what I focused on, right? If you don't have passion behind it, you're not going to drive it through to completion.
Yeah.
So yes, well, you can be like passionate about a project and having fun, but sometimes you'll just have times you're not having fun because like you're just kind of stuck on something. Like you just don't know how to design this particular aspect of your content, and it's totally okay to ask your peers or something like people you trust. Like, what do you think of this part here? Or I've got too many features. I'm trying to kind of cut down the set and
Yeah.
Amadors?
I'd say if you're working on a project and you're working on it for yourself, do take in feedback from others, but don't let that take over the whole design.
Yes.
It is your project after all, and it has to reflect your views and what you would enjoy personally. So don't get too carried away, but do still take feedback from others, of course.
Great.
For me, I would just say redefine the way you view failure. Because over this whole process of the past 10 years of me doing modding, there's been plenty of failures within my process of designing new projects. And it can be very easy to get caught up in that failure and think like, oh, you know, I didn't nail it. I didn't get what I wanted out of that experience. But don't think of it that way. Always think of failures as just learning experiences, growing pains essentially. And once you get through those growing pains and those learning experiences, you'll come out as a better person and as a better developer. So yeah, just redefine failure.
Right.
Failure is not failure. It's you growing.
Yeah, I think it was Thomas Edison who said, you know, I didn't fail to make a light bulb. I learned 10,000 ways not to.
Yeah, yeah.
And every time you fail, you make one step closer to your success, right? And
Absolutely.
eventually, you figure it out, right?
All right, guys, we have a little bit of time left. Emma, can you pass me that cup over there, please?
Oh my god.
I'm very concerned right
This
now.
is
What's happening?
This is
it's
fully
it's
improvised.
it's story time with Vasky here. So
Oh my.
God.
one thing you have to keep in mind is you and your team, you're all humans. The humane aspect, your mental health during creation is very important.
Absolutely.
You need to make sure that you feel happy and proud of what you're creating, even if everyone outside says it's not correct. So I'm going to give an anecdote in this last minute or so here. One of my mods is called Botania. It is a mod where you make flowers, the flowers make energy, the energy does other stuff. I'm not going to get too into it. Direwolf did. You can look up his videos on it, there's a lot of them.
Thanks for the plug.
Anytime, dude. So the mod used to start by you making this very simple flower called the Daybloom. You put it down, you gave it sunlight, and it would generate the energy. The intent was it was a starting flower, you would get it, and then you would progress on to more complex ones. People just started spamming that instead of progressing, so I removed it. And I got a massive amount of backlash for it, like a lot of backlash. But I decided I'm going to stand my ground. I'm going to keep these things in here. And I started getting people coming to me saying, I'm really happy you removed that, because if you hadn't removed that, I would have missed out on a really cool mod. that I would have just gone over by spamming these. So what I mean to say here is keep an eye on yourself, on what you want to do and on how you feel, because ultimately, if you're making something you're proud of, there will be people out there who are also happy with, and make sure that you stand your ground even if everyone else says the opposite. And I will
Great.
drink from this, but it's water and I'm not thirsty.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here on this panel. I thought it was very beneficial. Like I said, people, if anybody out there is looking to create something within Minecraft, just get started, right? Follow through the steps we went through here. If you have any questions about this panel, there's a hashtag you can use on Twitter, hashtag MineConQA. So feel free to use that to reach out to us with any questions.
Yeah, we'll be
we'll be
there
monitoring it.
checking it out. I mean, if you just want a meme, just ask for a meme and we'll send you a meme. That'll work too.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in and take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.